Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the co-chair of the MGH 100 Event Committee, Jay Monahan.
Good evening, everyone. As that mysterious man just said, I'm Jay Monahan. I'm one of the co-chairs of our third annual celebration of the 100. I'd like to welcome each of you to what will be a remarkable evening and thank those whose tireless work has made this evening possible, including the 100 Committee and my co-chairs, my wife Susan, and Stephen and Laura Lang. We're grateful to each of you for the part you play in this event. You who join us tonight and support us. You who submitted nominations, crafting with care a story of someone whose contribution matters immeasurably to you and your loved ones. Nominated by peers, colleagues, patients, and family members, our 2010 honorees represent an astonishing array of ages, backgrounds, and talents. Among them are philanthropists, volunteers, researchers, staff, clinicians, and advocates. Many have no affiliation with the Massachusetts General Hospital Cancer Center. What they share is a steadfast commitment to using their gifts to the full extent on behalf of patients with cancer. During the dinner, we'll introduce you to a few of the 100 we honor in 2010. When we conclude our program, you will receive a tribute book. Here it is, with the stories of all of our 2010 honorees. We hope you will spend time with each and every one of them. In its third year, the 100 event has already raised more than $1.5 million for patient care and research at the Cancer Center. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. I spent a lot of time spend my professional life in the event business. I can also tell you that there's nothing that's more rewarding than coming to an event and seeing it grow each year. So kudos to everybody in the room here tonight. Like most of you, my wife Susan and I've got my father, Joe, my brothers Brendan, Justin, sisters-in-law Abby and Sarah here. We have a personal connection to cancer, including the loss of my mother, Joanne Hill Monahan, in 2007. She died at the age of 61 after bravely battling lung cancer. I'm forever indebted, and we're forever indebted to the Cancer Center for the superb care my mother and our family received throughout her treatment. With great skill and compassion, the team, led by Dr. Jennifer Temmel, did everything possible to treat my mother while also helping us cope with her illness. Our mom spent her last weeks relatively free of pain and at home with her family, and she passed away with the dignity and grace that characterized how she lived her life. Now, given the nature of this insidious disease, this night will stir two distinct emotions: longing and sadness for those that battled or are battling this disease, and passion and pride for the difference you, the Massachusetts General Hospital Cancer Center, and others are making in this fight. We want this night to be an unfettered celebration, but the reality is we have far more work to do. To make a difference in this fight, we confront this truth. Everyone's diverse skills and contributions add up in the fight against cancer, including the 21st century social marketing techniques and expertise of the company headed by one of my co-chairs, Laura Lang. Laura is the CEO of the largest digital advertising marketing agency in the world, Digitas. Laura assembled an amazing, and I repeat, amazing creative team of Digitas employees, including many who also experienced cancer in their own lives, to help promote this year's 100. If you've been online, if you've been Twittering, if you've been on our Facebook page, and any other form of new media, Laura and her team brought us there. So please join me in welcoming Laura to the stage, and let's also recognize the Digitas team who's here with us tonight. I'm going to ask them to stand.
Oh, thank you, Jay. My husband, Steve, and I are just so pleased to join you and Susan in co-chairing this inspiring event. Like the Monahans, our family has experienced firsthand the compassionate care and expertise that makes the Cancer Center the choice for so many families and patients. 6 years ago, we moved from Connecticut to Boston so that I could become the leader of Digitas. And shortly after we arrived, I felt a lump in my breast and had absolutely no idea what to do. We didn't have any relationships in the medical community, but lucky for us, our new neighbors who are with us tonight introduced us to Mass General. And from the minute that we walked in the door, from diagnosis all the way through surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, all of it, we felt so personally cared for and supported. I remember exactly how I first heard it was cancer. I was in Texas, and I was waiting to go to a big client dinner, and I got the phone call. I couldn't even understand the words. I had to write them all down, and then I didn't know what to do, so I went to dinner. But then I went right back to Boston, and we were immediately embraced by an incredible team of doctors. Barbara Smith, who is with us, Jerry Younger, Alphonse Tagian. We had tons of questions, like everyone does, but they never rushed us, answered every question, fully engaged us in understanding and planning everything. And I'd like to share a story about something that happened to me when I first started. I arrived in the waiting room, and I overheard a group of people talking. And this is what I was hearing. Oh, she is so special. I couldn't do it without her. Always there for me. I just assumed that they were talking about their family or their support network. But I came to find out that they were actually talking about the nurses at Mass General. And we keep to learn that our wonderful experience is no different than how others are treated. In fact, almost every patient, every family that we met as we went through this journey felt the same way. Mass General's just truly dedicated to caring for each patient in a personal and best way. For me, one of my first and most important decisions was not to give up my work. I didn't want cancer to define who I was. I wanted to live my life and treat cancer. And it was important for me to show our daughter, Alex, who was 16 at the time, that you can face these things and keep going. And the team at MGH was incredibly supportive of this choice. In fact, they helped find ways to make it work. They timed treatments around my schedule. And even the wonderful valet at the radiation building would have my car waiting at the curb as I came running out after the early morning treatments. We were surprised at how totally collaborative everyone was, from surgeons to nurses to radiologists. There were no silos. You know, everybody understood what was going on, and everybody worked together. I'm usually pretty fearless about most things, but I will say that I have just never liked needles. And when you go through this, you kind of have to use those. And you know what? The minute I told the nurses, they were amazing. In fact, they trotted out every technique that they use with their littlest children patients. I still smile, actually, when I think about that. Friends back in Connecticut had advised us that in a big teaching and research hospital, you have to be your own advocate. That's not true. At Mass General, my entire team was my advocate. Thank you all. The connection between leading-edge science and integrated collaborative patient care is what amazes us about the Cancer Center. But those are kind of just words. What does that really mean? And I would like to close with another short story, but this time it's about the science of the Cancer Center. I had the opportunity to tour the research facility of the Cancer Center in Charleston. It's a wonderful building, and it's full of all these amazing computers and brilliant scientists, and you'll hear more about that tonight. But I met a wonderful young doctor there, and he stood by his newest supercomputer, which talks, by the way, and he had named it HAL. I kid you not. And he said that before he came to MGH, he had always been passionate about finding breakthroughs in cancer research. However, at MGH, as a researcher, he also sees patients. And now when he walks back into that room with that supercomputer, he's thinking about the faces, the people, the families that he treats as a doctor seeing patients. And it has changed him, and it has changed his research. Co-chairing the 100 gives me an opportunity to help other people learn about and support this amazing place that we call Mass General, and recognize some of its unsung heroes. And this has to include our terrific nurses. Nurses are the front lines of all of this expert, compassionate care. While our physicians manage the big picture, our nurses get us through the day-to-day business of cancer treatment. They advise us on what could happen, what would happen, what to do, and they urged me to call with doubts, problems, questions. They were so helpful and so smart and so very essential to my healing process. And I am honored to introduce the first honorees that you will meet this evening. Please watch.
She's one of those people who instantly exudes compassion.
Although she is only one person, we always felt she was at our side.
From the very first day, we were grateful we were in her hands.
I look back on what I went through, and I cannot believe it. I would never have been able to do this without her.
We feel as if she's our ally and our partner for life.
She was not just my mother's nurse. She was her friend. I met Danielle when my mother was diagnosed with a very rare and aggressive uterine cancer. During this very difficult time for our family, we each sought peace and comfort in different ways. We turned to God, family, friends, co-workers, doctors, nurses, and even online support groups. Each one of these gave us comfort, encouragement, and strength in their own ways. From each of these relationships, we learned a lot about cancer, but even more about ourselves. From each of these relationships, long-lasting friendships were created. But one connection that was very genuine, very special, was a relationship between my mother and her infusion nurse, Danielle. Although my sister and I accompanied my mother to every 5-hour-long appointment, it was really Danielle that helped get her through those long days. At some point, my mother started telling Danielle she loved her at the end of each visit. My sister and I exchanged looks that we understood to mean, there goes our crazy Greek mother crossing boundaries with people. She didn't even know Danielle. She was just her nurse. At my mother's last appointment, she and Danielle both cried, promised to stay in touch, and exchanged I love yous. It was truly incredible to see that Danielle not only touched our lives, but that my mother somehow touched her life as well. It amazes me that in the midst of a family crisis, we find ourselves relying on strangers more often than we rely on those closest to us. I came to realize that Danielle was not just my mother's nurse. She was her friend.
Although Terry is only one person, I and my late husband, John, always felt she was at our side, 24/7, from the very day we met her. When my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, not only were we completely devastated, we were also terrified. And after reading the statistics, very, very, very depressed with what we heard. Terry gave us back our lives. She instilled hope in both of us. She told us to go live our lives. Although we knew that we were fighting tremendous odds, we were determined to beat the odds and felt, because of Terry, that we could. Unfortunately, that did not happen. My husband passed away peacefully, unexpectedly, never frightened or uncomfortable, talking about, "I'm going to have my eyes done when I'm through with this thing." Terry allowed us to feel that way. Being my husband's only caretaker and one of the few people who knew about his illness, I look back on what I went through and I cannot believe it was actually me. I would never have been able to do this without her. I would not have been able to get through my husband's illness and his sudden death had it not been for this truly remarkable, loving, dedicated individual.
Bonnie was my daughter Emily's infusion nurse through 10 months of chemotherapy. 10 months of difficult treatment is a long haul for a young woman whose life has been interrupted and who has so many things she'd rather be doing. But Bonnie made Emily, her dad, and me feel that we were on a quest for a cure along with her. And if you're on that quest, believe me, Bonnie is the nurse with whom you want to be traveling. We were frightened when we first walked into the infusion center. We had little idea about what would happen to Emily, how she would feel, what we would see, whose hands our precious daughter would be in. But from that first day, we were grateful they were Bonnie's hands. You hear her coming, those heels clicking on the floor before you see her, always in her white lab coat and always with a big smile. Of course, she can't always feel like smiling, but you'd never know that. Without fail, she explained every step to Emily, making her a full partner in her own treatment. Seeing Bonnie, listening to her, working with her became a welcome routine, not just for Emily, but for her dad and me too. Emily and I feel as if she's our ally and our partner for life. I wish with all my heart that we had never had to bring our beautiful Emily to Mass General, but we are ever so grateful for the exceptional treatment she's received and continues to receive there. Along the way, we've met many bright lights working in many different positions, but we think Bonnie is neon.
So would Bonnie Strudas and Teresa McDonald please stand up and be recognized? Now, Danielle Colby LeBlanc is not present tonight because she just gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy, Kenneth Colby. And at this time, I'd like to ask that all the nurses who are here in attendance, please stand. And please join me in recognizing these people who do amazing things every day. Please stand. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight. Please eat, and we will resume the program shortly.